Verse 9, symbolic for the present age. According to this arrangement, gifts and sacrifices are offered that cannot perfect the conscience of the worshiper. Stated plainly, the writer is trying to tell us that the earthly system had its limits. It was good. Don't get me wrong, people. Please don't get me wrong. The earthly system with its priests, its animal sacrifices, its atonement, the whole Levitical system, the whole Mosaic law, all right, all of that was a good system. It still is a good system even without the animal sacrifices, even without the temple. The law of Moses is still a good law, right? God's laws are perfect. Read Psalms chapter 19 and Psalms 119, right? The law of the Lord is perfect. So we know that the earth, and Paul echoes this in Romans chapter 7, where he says the law is holy, just, and good. So we know that the law is a good system, but it has its built-in limitations. It cannot perfect the conscience of the worshiper. This is a built-in limitation that God himself designed from the word go. From that, the writer says in verse 10 that the Levitical law, the earthly system of atonement, which, keep in mind that there's an overlapping between the concept of the law of Moses as a whole and the atoning system with its priests, its sacrifices, the blood, and all of that in specific. So we can overlap those two within the mind of the writer here, because at the bigger picture, he's talking about the law of Moses when he talks about the first system and that which had fault and that which is growing old and vanishing. It is the Mosaic system which is at fault. But on a more specific level, as we zoom in, he's trying to get the readers, and we know this from the context of chapters 8, 9, and 10, which focus specifically on the high priesthood and on atonement and on blood sacrifice and things like that. In specific, the specific focus is not the law of Moses, rather the specific focus is blood atonement and the comparison and contrast between the blood atonement of the earthly system and the blood atonement of Yeshua. So in verse 10, we see that the outer sanctuary could not perfect the conscience, verse 9 and 10, right? They only deal with food and drink and various washings, regulations for the body imposed until the time of Reformation. Perhaps this phrase, until the time of Reformation, as one of my students in the life study likes to point out, is pointing to the eternal state, right? The state after the millennium, when all things will be brought back to kind of a state like the Garden of Eden, where everything is reformed, the earth is reformed, the heavens are reformed, renewed, and we're brought to a place where we don't even really need the Torah of Moses on an everyday applicability level, because we will be in a state of perfection. There will be no sin at all. But until that time, until the time of Reformation, which I think has good traction, what my student likes to remind me of, until that time, everything leading up until that time, which would include this age that we're living in right now, as well as the age to come, which refers to the millennial 1,000-year reign with Christ, there's still sin in the picture. And until sin is completely put away, we need the law of Moses to play its part for humans here on earth. And so we haven't reached the time of Reformation yet. That's all I have to say about that.